The guy there, what's his name? Serpent revealed some 20,000 US dollars tenancy agreement between yourself and Mr. Victor Singh for the rental of property, your home at Jolly Harbor. Are you the owner of the property, sir, if I may ask?
The property is owned by myself and my wife. Yes, we own the property 100%.
Coming very low.
Okay. All right. So the property is owned by you and your wife.
Correct.
How long did it take you to build that property, if I may add?
Took us 5.5 years to build that property.
It's a beachfront property.
It is on the beach at Jolly Harbor. There are two beach areas in Jolly Harbor. You have North Beach and South Beach, in which there are a number of luxury villas on the beach. They are all very large properties. Most people occupy their properties on a full-time basis. The limited ones that are actually rented, they are rented primarily on a short-term basis for about 3,000 US per night. And, that's the situation there. I mean, it is perhaps one of the most beautiful pieces of real estate on the island, because with these homes, you have, for example, at the back of the home, you step off your property onto the beach, the public beach, one of the finest beaches in the world, Jolly Beach. And then at the front of the house, there is a canal in which there's a boat dock, and you can literally moor your boat right up to the canal, on the wharf or on the boat dock, and walk right into your home. A very beautiful development, and then Jolly Harbor, as you know, is $1 billion development, and it is one of the finest on the island, and one of the finest in the Caribbean. I was lucky to get a parcel of land there some years ago, which I purchased from Mr. Anthony Valadi, now deceased. I got it at a knockdown price because at the time he was broke, and I had the good sense to purchase the land, recognizing that it'll be a good property for a home or an investment property. I mean, initially the plan was for my family to move from Hodges Bay to Jolly Harbor, but Maria had a change of heart. I mean, she was a little worried about the security, being on an open beach and so on. And then after the situation with Choxy occurred, she took a very firm decision that she is not going to live there permanently. She didn't mind going there on the weekend and so on. So she has actually placed us in a position where she has to now go and get a mortgage to build a house somewhere, because I can't go and get another mortgage in my old age. So she understands how the thing go. I mean, she won't live in Royal North. I done tell her already, go and borrow the money and build a house. So, we would have gotten this property rented. And I even said to her, the $54,000 a month that we get, you can take it. I go and borrow the rest and build a house. So I will live in her house. So, I mean, I really don't know what this is about, this issue is about. I mean, it's a private property owned by myself and my wife. We're renting it to another private person. It has nothing to do with government. We didn't buy anything from government. The house is not a government property. The land, it was never a government piece of land. We don't we pay our own utilities. In fact, we pay our utilities to Jolly Harbor for the month of November. I think that's the last time we pay. We have another one due for December. Our utilities were over $8,000, and that is what the current occupant would have utilized in utilities we had to pay. It's a fully air-conditioned house. All the rooms are air-conditioned. It was literally constructed as a 7-bedroom property. It was reduced to 5 to allow for additional facilities. So, for example, on the upstairs, the upper deck, the upper level, there should have been 2 bedrooms. It was converted into what we call the super master bedroom. So there's a master bedroom downstairs, which is probably maybe about 600 square feet. And we converted the upstairs into a super master bedroom, which is about 1,300 square feet. It has a front patio, it has a back patio. This property is fully furnished. In fact, it is bigger than some of the properties that have been rented for $3,000 a night. Fortunately, in South Beach, there are only 2 local Antiguans who have properties on the beach. and that's myself and another minister of the former UPP administration. In fact, his house is being constructed. I don't think it's completed as yet. So I'm the only Antiguan who has a property, beach property at Jolly Harbor that's available for rent. So I want to know if my white neighbors can rent their properties for $3,000 a night, collecting $90,000 a month. I mean, I want to know why I can't rent my own on a long-term basis for $20,000. I mean, what is so wrong about that? I mean, the property is a luxury property. It has a number of amenities. It has a gym. It has a receiving room that also doubles as a little theater, with all of the amenities. Huge television screen, 85-foot television screen. On the outdoor patio, you have a 16-foot drop-down projector screen with projectors, so you can have movie-type engagements. It has an indoor kitchen, an outdoor kitchen. It has a pool. It has jacuzzi. In fact, it has 2 jacuzzis, one upstairs, one downstairs. It has a whirlpool on the outside as well. I don't know what issues.
Well, PM, listen, we did our investigations already, so we know about the 2 kitchens and the pool and the jacuzzi and the TV room. We did our investigations. So that's no surprise to us, but that's for the public as well. But I can tell you this much. You mentioned that you took out a mortgage for this property. We also found out that...
Yes, the Global Bank,
yes, we found out that.
Me with the funding, and I still owe them and still paying them, yes.
All right. Now, I want to introduce at this point in time someone who could speak about the issue and how it all started with the renting of this property, because based on what we're understanding, you were very adamant that you were not going to rent the property from the inception. Am I correct?
Well, yes. As I said to you, there was a little strained situation with myself and Maria in that I wanted us to move there, and she refused to go there. So eventually we came to the understanding, okay, fine, we're not going to live there. Well, you go and get a mortgage and build a house where we can live, and we rent that one. And that is how I eventually relented. But I would have been approached by several individuals to rent the property as much as $5,000 a night. In fact, one client offered me $10,000 a night on a short-term basis for 2 weeks. And I refused because they had about 11 people. And in any case, the idea was to make it our home. But the property has been substantially closed, since COVID. I mean, I went there for 1 week, stayed there for about a week to try and keep the house and so on, because it's locked down for a while, clean it up and all that. But we have not lived there.
Okay, before I go to the next guest, who is holding, she's going to join us.
I should make an additional point here to Comrade, that, look, as Prime Minister, part of my pay is a house allowance, which I could have taken in cash, or I could pay a landlord. So the house allowance that I get, it has no relationship to that property at Jolly Harbor. So government has no relationship with that property. Instead of taking the cash, I chose to give the house allowance to my mother-in-law because I live in her house. And what would have happened after I became Prime Minister, she had some tenants. Her house is a 3-story house at Hodges Bay. I'm sure you know the property. So she has the first level that she was renting, and she has, let me see, 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, 3 en-suite bedrooms upstairs. So she had about, I think, probably about 4 or 5 medical school students, paying her a few $1,000s a month. But after I became Prime Minister, for security reasons, she had to ask them to leave. And I felt, on the basis that I'm depriving her of income, it was important for me to pay her, in lieu of her getting rid of those people out of her house. So that is the situation there. And I would have been better off taking the cash, because the government pays her. When they were paying, they used to pay her like maybe once every 4 or 5 months. And then during the period of COVID, they have not paid her for about at least 18 months. It's only Christmas she got a payment. So they owe hundreds of thousands of dollars. If I take in the cash, we'd be in a better position. So it shows here that it is not, the motivation here was not even to maximize, my return. Otherwise I would have taken the cash and I could have given her the cash. I mean, what I said is that, you know what, I live in a house, pay her the rent. And I don't know what the big issue is.
Okay, now we have gone to the point where we even...
There are two entities that I'm aware that, have copies of the contract. The real estate agency that I had to pay $54,000 because they're the ones who recommended Singh to me. And I don't know that they had any mens rea to leak it. And the other entity that has a copy of the contract is the bank. Where the funds are being deposited. Because what happened, I'm a politically exposed person. So there's greater scrutiny involving myself, especially as I'm Prime Minister, than perhaps any other citizen, to make sure that funds that are deposited in the bank, that the funds are legitimately earned. In fact, Scotiabank, where I did most of my savings over the years, Scotiabank, and by the way, it's not Scotiabank that is that these funds have been deposited to, but Scotiabank that prior to their sale to ECAB, where I did most of my banking, they took a decision that the only check that they will take from me was my salary check because I'm politically exposed. So the banks here don't play as far as they're concerned. They treat you as though you're a criminal when you're politically exposed. I mean, I was not very happy about the behavior of the banks initially, the way how they treated me, because they ought to have known that I've been a businessman for over 30 years, that I have a number of property interests in which I've been collecting rentals for decades. Some of the people, they pay in cash, and I can't take the cash from these people and deposit it. They refuse to take the cash. So fine. I wasn't happy about it initially, but in hindsight, it's a good thing because there's a paper trail involving every single cent that I would have deposited in my bank account. So there's one or two entities that would have leaked it, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, it's a standard contract that was presented to myself and Mr. Singh for signature by the real estate agency. I mean, I did not develop the contract. I mean, that's a contract that they offer to all of their clients. And I happily signed it. I was happy for the referral. I paid them their $54,000. And I don't know what this brouhaha is all about.
Well, look, we are looking at the contract here, the lease agreement. Jupiter, you're going past the signature. I see a third signature here. I am familiar with your signature, Prime Minister. I see a signature here for Victor Singh, who is the investor. I also see a third signature on the signed, seal, and delivered by the within name landlord. Whose signature is that?
Well, that's the real estate agent. There's several people who work in that firm, so I can't tell you that I can identify the signature. So I can't say specifically who at the real estate agency signed it, but it was actually witnessed by one of them. Yeah.
Okay. I have Lisa McCool, my good friend. She was once a host of a show right here on this radio station called Cocktails. What do you call it again, Jupiter? Cocktails and Conversations. So she's no stranger to us here at 99.1 FM. I'm sure she has something to share because I've had a discussion with her. But I still have some questions for you. Lisa, good afternoon and welcome to the Brown and Brown Show.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Good afternoon to Antigua and Barbuda.
Lisa, I'm glad to have you joining us this afternoon at short notice because I've had a discussion with you prior to coming on air, and I decided to invite you to share what you have gleaned or what you know about this agreement, this lease agreement that we're hearing so much brouhaha about, which is really nothing. And I'm sure that the Prime Minister will recall as well that at some point in time, his son too was verbally chastised wrongfully by members of the opposition pertaining to a piece of land that he had gotten at Long Island. Prime Minister, you remember that, right? Long Bay, yes. But you remember that. So it reminds me of that. But Lisa, take us back a little bit. Tell us how it started from the inception, because I have found out that the Prime Minister, and he just mentioned it as well, that he was adamant that he was not going to rent his place. You can give us a synopsis of what took place because you're in the know. You know exactly what happened. So brief us on that if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, sure. My apologies for not turning on my camera. So I've known Mr. Singh is one of my clients. He's been visiting the island monthly for the last 2.5 years. We originally met in Dominica, where he was actually introduced to the Prime Minister, Prime Minister Brown, that is, and then we convinced him to, come and check out Antigua. So he started visiting Antigua and staying at hotels. And he would stay for long periods, 10 days, 15 days. It started like that. And then eventually when things started rolling and he visited different,
Is she there, Jupiter? Okay.
what exactly, the country needed
Agreed.
investment-wise. I introduced him to Mr. Ida, and he fell in love with the special economic zone concept, very much actually. And then we started looking for land. He wanted to buy, 1,500 acres of land, 1,000, 9, whatever he could have gotten. He was really interested in looking for land, and it took up a lot of my time. And I work for a company. I'm running a company, so I eventually reached out to a few real estate agents that I know, my niece being one. A few real estate agents would remember back in 2020 and throughout 2021, I reached out to them to say, look, do you have any land? At some point, he did rent an apartment from a local individual through the same real estate company, I might add, because I tell everybody real estate is not my business, so I send referrals. But he did not like it. He thought it was too small. He wanted to be able to have a grand house that he's accustomed to, so he can bring his chef, so he can entertain. Like he likes to put, he says he wants to be able to, to host his investors and, show them his hospitality. So the apartment went empty for the entire time he rented it. He never stepped foot in it. He continued staying at the hotels. Eventually, more and more persons would come. He'll bring his partners and his colleagues, and 10 days turned into 20 days, and he just started staying longer and longer. And then he found Seafort, and he fell in love with Seafort. He eventually, got it signed over to him. And that's how the special economic zone came about. He presented the government, cabinet, I should say, with his plan, what he wanted to do. And if anybody knows him, and I'm sure, he's quite known in the community now, he wants what he wants, and he's very,
Are you saying that he's very persistent, a very persistent individual, and very picky and choosy?
This is why I couldn't keep up with the looking for the house, because we started looking for houses in the north that he can buy, because now he wanted to buy a house, and then he didn't like this one. This one would take too much work. And that's why I got real estate agents involved, because I did not have the time. It became, it took up too much of my time. So very persistent. Then eventually he says he wants to be close to his land because he wants to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and walk the beach. He's very into nature. He's very into,
wellness,
the water. So we started looking for homes around that side of the island. Again, I put him onto the real estate company, and they started showing him different homes. We looked at Sugar Ridge. Then one day they went to Jolly Harbor, and he saw a few options. One he didn't like because it would take too much work. And when somebody has a vision of what they want in their head because of what they're accustomed to,
yes.
He, and I kept telling him, you're not going to find a house like you have in England, in Jolly Harbor. You'll have to buy land and build. So one day he calls, he says, I think I find a house that I want. I said, okay, what's the house? They tell me the prime minister owns the house. I said, oh, well, good luck with that. He's not going to rent it because
Yes.
I have had clients, and it's 2020, pre-COVID, I had clients that wanted to rent from the PM, and he said no. And these are nightly rates. Nightly. This is 5, 6, 7,000 US a night. This was not even long term. PM wanted back. This is pre-COVID. He wanted to entertain. You know, I remember him having his son's birthday party there. Just before COVID and stuff. So he liked it. He liked going down there on the weekends. But, you know, I used to say, oh, a short-term PM. No, never did it. In 2021, I had a big-time lawyer from DC. She had 10 children. She worked for the firm Dentons, and short-term again. And PM said, no, I'm not interested in renting. So I said to him, well, good luck. You're not going to get it, but good luck. You can try. So the real estate company, I gave them the number. They called the PM. He came back. He says, PM said no. I said, well, I told you that was going to happen. Continued looking. A couple days later, he came. He says, you know, try and speak to the PM again. He would not say no to you. I said, PM is not going to rent. I called the PM. He's like, no. And we left it there. And then, you know, Mr. Singh is, you know, I keep telling him, I said, you know, he has a way of just making you feel sorry. So another day he comes back. He says, please try and call the PM again. I said, okay, let me see. So I called PM. I said, PM, listen, this is it. He's been looking for 2 years. I'm tired. I'm really tired. I cannot find somewhere that suits him. He loves an outdoor kitchen. He wants to bring in his chef. He promises me he's going to build. Just give it to me for a year. Give it to him for a year. And that's how PM really agreed. You know, that's how he says, okay. And I handed it over to the real estate. My niece worked for them at the time, so I handed it over to her. I said, okay, deal with it. PM didn't even know when the money hit his account. They were calling me, Lisa, could you check and make sure PM got the money? He was so not even interested. It was not, and Seaport was, the Seaport was done. The special economic zone was a done deal.
I was just about, Lisa, I was just about to ask you at what stage the transaction and so forth would have happened.
This is way after. This is the reason he wanted Jolly Harbor was because Seaport was happening. You know, he said he wanted to be close to his land. This is why I stopped looking in the north and I had to look in the south now. And this is why I said I couldn't manage. I said I have a business to run. I cannot spend a whole day with you. I'm not a real estate agent. And this is how, you know, but they had multitude of people that were assisting. Michael Freeland started looking for me also. Different people. I remember Thomas Anthony also was looking for land. I mean, he didn't target the Prime Minister's house. The PM was never interested in renting. And I know because I've asked PM a few times to rent to clients before, pre-COVID, after COVID, everything. And it was always about Brown and Brown, I must tell you, Colin. Always came back, but where am I going to have my show lease off?
Yeah, I told you already gonna have to come back.
Senator, I used to go there on a Saturday to host my Brown and Brown show.
Yes.
But other than the weekend, that's the only time that we went there because I had remained hopeful that, you know, my family would have moved there. But, you know, my dear wife, the boss,
Yes.
she said no. And then after the Troxy situation, I just had to relent, you know. She said no. So she said she wants to be in the north. Her son goes to school in the north, and her younger child, Peace, she will start school in the north from next September. She says, you know, she preferred to be in the north. I had to respect that. So at one point, I was still holding out some level of hope that we could move there. Then after a while, I recognized, okay, that doesn't seem very possible. So may as well rent it because the house has been substantially closed for the last 18 months.
Okay.
Anyway, look, you know, let's look at the issues in terms of a conflict of interest.
Yes.
You know, I'm not unaccustomed to, you know, unjustified malignment, if there's any such word, or to be unjustifiably maligned. And, you know, people with evil intent and an agenda to malign and to slander and to defame, especially for political gain. You just can't stop them. Even when someone looks stupid, even when it's evident that it's just their bad-mindedness that is featuring, they still continue because for some reason, they believe that by appealing to maybe the unsuspecting and those rabid elements who support them, they believe that they're scoring cheap brownie points. And I think to some extent too that they are literally underestimating the intelligence of the people of Antigua and Barbuda. They think that people are unable to differentiate between slander, propaganda, and the truth. And I know that there are times that they're not happy with what I say about them, but I maintain that I continue to speak truth to power, and I would have used their failures to ridicule them, to deride them. I mean, I've gone as far as using provocative and even contemptuous language, but I've never used any socially unacceptable language against my political opponents. I've used language that is allowable. So, when I call them, for example, deracinated elements, there's nothing there's nothing profoundly wrong about the words. I mean, they may not like them, but those are clean, provocative words, maybe contemptuous of them, yes. And I think that I'm allowed to be contemptuous of my political opponents who continue to malign me. So what I notice is happening, though, there's perhaps what I consider to be a form of widespread dysphoria within the UPP. People are just unhappy, bitter. They just have nothing to shout about. Everything is a problem for them. They look at the success of others and they become envious. And they're just leading extremely unhappy lives. And they'll tell you that, there's a form of dystopia in the country, that there's a dictator running it and everything mashing up, everything is bad. They have no form of optimism. Everything of them is about pessimism. And, maybe when they when they slander and they malign, it probably gives them some level of comfort. But at the end of the day, what they don't recognize is that the type of evil behavior and the hatred that they're spewing, they're literally destroying themselves. And what I notice that they're trying to give the impression that, only certain people in this country are allowed to make money, which is not the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I will accept that, a very economic system, capitalism in itself has certain inequities and that, it doesn't result in the equalization of wealth. But the very equalization of wealth comes with, some challenges. So, for example, you will notice that one of the principles of what the word I'm looking for now, of communism,
Socialism.
and I'm trying to find a word. Anyway, one of the principle of these, of the alternative to capitalism is that it does not reward effort. So this idea that we can use socialism, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yes.
I almost said socialization.
Socialism.
Socialism.
Yeah.
And even communism, in which you have a command economy and so on, and you try to equalize wealth. I mean, those systems have not worked. In essence, if you're going to equalize wealth, notwithstanding the effort of the individual, then obviously you're going to undermine performance. And when you undermine performance, you undermine productivity, and you literally you'll kill any economy. And that is why these capitalist economies have invariably outperformed the socialist economies. Now, having said that, we're very mindful as a government that we have to create a better balance, and we're literally pursuing a policy of, empowerment capitalism, which is somewhat of a hybrid between socialism and capitalism. If you go to a totally socialistic structure, then you undermine growth and development ultimately. And in as much as capitalism does result in some skewed distribution of wealth, at the end of the day, these people who generate the wealth, they provide employment opportunities and other social opportunities to people, a mass of people. So what we have done is that we have sought to further socialize wealth through our economic programs and even our social programs. So you find, for example, that we continue to redistribute wealth through our housing program, in which we contribute up to $150,000 per person in